This program is brought to you in association with First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
We're in the festive season, where even with the current troubles of the pandemic, a bit of excitement has ensued in anticipation of seeing family during the holidays. Spending usually goes up because of Christmas gifts, the feasts, and blowing the 13th check in reward for having gotten through a difficult year. While this is a time for merriment, it is unfortunately also a time for when fraudsters worldwide are clamoring for the opportunity to take advantage of unsuspecting merchants, consumers and donors. This is because during the festive season, a lot more attention is given to the excitement at hand, the gift buying, festivities and travel, making it fertile ground to be preyed on by fraudsters and scammers. A lot more people lose their hard-earned money during this time of year. But most of these losses could easily be prevented by simply being aware of the signs of fraud and how to look out for suspicious activity in fraud scams prone places such as ATMs, swiping machines and on the internet. Tonight on First Issues, fraud manager at a local commercial bank, Kagiso Patrick, accounts exactly how criminals have become more professional and sophisticated in their approach to fraudulent activity.
First of all, I think you are right, when you point to the fact that, crime is becoming more prevalent, more especially looking at cyber fraud or online fraud scams. I think it all starts with what we call social engineering. This is what we are seeing as the main cause. And social engineering being, techniques which criminals use to manipulate people into, disclosing their confidential information. Criminals tricking, people to give away their passwords, including banking information, so that they can actually target them and steal from them. And the most important thing here is trust, which is the currency, which is, of paramount importance when you talk about this kind of crimes. Because criminals start off by, buying your trust. And after you give them that trust, they violate it. They use it against you so that they can, get your information and eventually steal from you. So, and when you look at, online fraud or online fraud scams, there are quite a variety of them, available or which we are seeing being prevalent currently. We are talking about, phishing scams, smishing scams, and what we call, business email, compromise.
That sounds all too sophisticated, maybe. So you could share more of the most common, most simplified forms of fraud and scams.
Just basically, phishing, smishing, and phishing. They actually involve, criminals sending you an email with an attachment or an SMS with an attachment, and with an instruction that you should or you must click that attachment so that you can, do a certain activity. And meanwhile, when you click or download that attachment, it, infects your computer with some malware or Trojan, which is used to steal your information. And, also we are seeing where, criminals will leave voice notes or they make phone calls to people, pretending to be representatives, of a reputable company, or any reputable company, with the aim of, actually soliciting or getting that privileged or confidential information from you. So that's basically what happens with these online scams. And, lastly, there's what we call business email compromise, as I've pointed out initially, which involves, where criminals either, hack into your system or they social engineer employees of a certain organization so that they disclose, privileged information about that organization. Mostly, pending payments, which are supposed to be made to clients. And after doing that, they share that information with criminals who then use that information to target the organization. For example, if there is a pending payment to a supplier, the criminals will then send out fraudulent instructions to the organization, basically telling you that the supplier has changed banking details, so that payments get diverted to the criminals. So if you make those payments without doing any due diligence, without doing any verification, then you are likely to lose your money in that scam. The other one, which I would really want to sensitize people on, is card fraud and card security in terms of how people can protect their cards. Card in the sense that I'm still going to tie everything to trust, because mostly the people who are defrauding us, these are the people whom we know, and to an extent that when we are at home, the manner in which we store our cards, the manner in which where we put our cards, we put them in the open where they are easily accessible to our family members, to our kids, to our spouses. And mostly these are the people who end up taking the card information and using it to perpetrate fraud or to do transactions which you know nothing about. We are seeing the prevalence of online streaming services nowadays. For example, being Netflix, being Showmax. We are also seeing online shops, like people are shopping through Alibaba, through eBay, and so on and so forth. So as long as someone has access to your card, they have information about your card, they can go online and make any purchase that they want. So and my advice to people is that they must make sure that they store their card securely where they are not accessible to other people who are not supposed to access them. Because if this fraud happens, then it's the ultimate responsibility of the cardholder to actually make sure that their cards are well protected. The other fraud, which is quite prevalent now, is, remember I spoke about fake online shops. We are seeing a lot of adverts, on social media, especially Facebook or Instagram, where criminals advertise different equipment, cars, plowing equipment, and so on and so forth. And this equipment would usually be advertised at very, very low, below market prices, so that people really get enticed very quickly, and they try to make purchases. And one example that I want to give is where criminals advertise cars and tag them as bank repossessed cars, and they give out these cars, or they put price tags which are really below market. And we've seen a lot of people falling victim to this, because usually when something is cheap, it attracts a lot of people, and when you see it, you would want to beat the queue, and you act very fast, and you don't usually have time to do all the necessary due diligence to check the authenticity and the genuineness of the advert or the offer.
In Africa, help is what we do. That is why we at FNB are relentlessly driven to provide real help to you, the passionate and courageous, the creators and the optimists. These are the entrepreneurs we support, the communities we uplift. It is because of you that real help is what we do. FNB, how can we help you?
We know prevention is always better than cure. So what are some of the tips that, people can take cognizance of to avoid being victims of these fraud scams?
I think it all goes down to diligence, enhanced due diligence. People must be diligent at all times. Before opening any attachment or any email, you must be sure that you know who the sender is. Usually what they're saying is, when it's too good to be true, it usually is. So when you find a 2019, for example, a vehicle, say a Toyota Hilux, going for as low as 120,000 as an example. It should, be a red flag. It should immediately, trigger suspicion in you that, this offer is just too good to be true.
It does happen also that, regardless, people will get defrauded. I mean, we've just been talking about a high prevalence of fraud and scams. So in the event that someone has been unfortunate to get defrauded, what are some of the channels that they can follow to perhaps maybe get some sort of justice?
The first point of contact should be the police, because they have the powers, they have the resources to investigate these crimes and make sure that, whoever is responsible for that crime is, get arrested. And still, if you feel that your card information or your bank information could, have been compromised or could be compromised, you must contact your bank immediately and make sure that the card is cancelled and you order a new one, or make sure that, all efforts are made to actually protect your personal information. Unfortunately, in most cases, banks do not take liability in terms of, reimbursing victims of this kind of frauds. So hence why we reiterate and emphasize that people must take responsibility for the security of their information, for the security of their cards, security of their passwords, so that they're not accessed or they're not accessible to, unauthorized people. I can also, add that, the bank will never contact you via email requesting for your passwords, or generally the bank will never contact you asking for your login details or your passwords. So as soon as you see that email, know that it's a fraud and you must not act on it.